Member from Thornhill.
Thank you, Speaker. Thank you, Speaker. And my question is to the Deputy Premier as well. Over the past week, Deputy Premier, the Ontario PC caucus has offered strong proof that your budget is nothing but a weak response to a looming $30 billion deficit. You, meanwhile, spent your week ignoring our questions, as you spent the past 6 months ignoring our recommendations. You also ignored the Auditor General, who told you that you had to, quote, provide legislators and the public with long-term targets and a strategy for how you plan to address the current and projected debt burden. I couldn't find that strategy in the budget. Could you? And if so, what page is it on?
Deputy Premier.
Mr. Speaker, they said they were voting against the budget before they read it, Mr. Speaker. They are continuing to nominate candidates across Ontario. You know, they stand in here and say no to business subsidies. They go to their ridings and tell the racetrack owners they're going to keep giving them $345 million a year, Mr. Speaker. They can't have it both ways. They tell us to adopt all of Don Drummond's recommendations. Let's look at the ones they've rejected. Mr. Drummond said keep LHINs. They said don't keep them. Mr. Drummond called for our wage freeze. They're against him on that. Mr. Drummond talked about the Niagara casinos. They disagree with him on that. Mr. Drummond said not to subsidize horse racing. They said no to that. Mr. Drummond said to introduce school bus competition. They said no to that. Mr. Speaker, this party has a consistent, well-thought-out plan. We're working with all Ontarians to build a better future because Ontario rejected them and their right-wing.
Seated, please. Stop the clock. Be seated, please.
I'm going to call my try tonight. Another question from Top Radio.
Oh, you like that?
Peter, you got another question?
Supplementary.
They talk about the radio a lot. You know, when I was on the radio, I could call him what he really is.
There is a way to say things without saying them, and I think the member came close to that, so I'm warning him.
Your responses to our questions, Deputy Premier, over the past week have been pitiful, and you continue to ignore us when we tell you that Ontario needs urgent and immediate action to get our debt under control, but you can't ignore this. RBC said your budget was only 1/3 of the way there. Empty gestures and halfway measures will not get it done, Deputy Premier. Where is the rest of your plan?
Deputy Premier.
Mr. Speaker, that member and his party want an unnecessary election that will put at risk hospital expansions in Cambridge and in Burlington, that will undermine our ability to continue to reduce the deficit.
I want to hear.
So, Mr. Speaker, we will continue to implement. We will implement a budget that is bringing down the deficit, Mr. Speaker. We will implement a budget that continues to protect the important gains we've made in health care and education. They can resort to name-calling and they can say things in this House that really don't add to the public debate, Mr. Speaker. But I'm confident that the people of Ontario share our objectives. That is to get back to balance, to build a strong and growing economy, and to protect the gains we've made in education and health care. That's what this government, this party, are all about, Mr. Speaker, and I'm confident the people of Ontario share those objectives.
You know, your Premier used to say, we will make sure the debt goes in one direction only, down. we will not add to the provincial debt. He used to say, we will continue to pay down the provincial debt. He used to say, we need a plan that reduces the debt. Now, having failed in all of those commitments, you, of all people, have the audacity to dismiss our right to comment on your budget. You are the Minister of Finance. You are not the King of Ontario. You follow the same parliamentary rules that we do. You do not write them. Sir, you are accountable to the people of Ontario who we represent, as you do. Now tell them and tell us, where in this budget is your debt reduction plan?
Deputy Premier.
Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives chose to walk away from any form of negotiation. They have chosen, Mr. Speaker, not to work with not to do what the people of Ontario want them to do, Mr. Speaker. They have abdicated their responsibility as the official opposition. Instead of sitting down and talking with us in the third party, they're out nominating candidates right across Ontario, Mr. Speaker. Instead of having a thorough debate, they choose to use language more attuned to low-rated radio station programs, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I reject their ways. I reject their desire to have an election. The people of Ontario rejected them last fall, and if they insist on an election now, I believe the people of Ontario will overwhelmingly reject them in a general election if that's what they try to force.
New question, the Leader of the